What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to another YouTube video. And it's your girl Bofina1, bringing you guys in another POV so you guys can see, in the car driving. But one thing that I wanted to talk about, and you'll see it on the title, is that a lot of stuff, 2025 is already starting out mad crazy, right? We just got a lot of stuff going on with this new president, etc. And the biggest thing that a lot of people have been talking about is inflation, right? Like, inflation is high, cost of food is high, cost of living period is high, from rent, interest rates, etc., right? Everything is just through the roof, crazy, right? And one of the things that I wanted to mention is that I feel like we talk a lot about inflation and we talk a lot about how everything is so high, this and this, but I also feel like sometimes people don't like to keep themselves accountable. And what I mean by this is a lot of folks have a lot of debt. You'd be surprised how many people have like hundreds and thousands of unnecessary debt. And what I mean by that is, spending money on stuff that you don't necessarily need. It's more of a want, right? That could mean something like vacations, right? Like, vacations are nice, but you don't have to go take a vacation. Buying a nice purse or a nice coat or a nice whatever, jeans, all those things are nice to have, but you don't have to have them. Those are not necessities. Those are wants. And I think a lot of time people tend to get those two, I guess you could say, mixed up, if that makes sense. And that's, what is this dude doing here? He waited all the way to the last minute to come out and almost caused like an accident. But anyway, what I really wanted to get at is I wanted to talk about how debt is people's biggest wealth killer. Like, if you were to go online right now and look at the average car note that a lot of people have, or that they own, the average car note is like $600 some right now, I believe, which is insane if you really think about it. That's a lot of money to be spending essentially on a depreciating asset. A lot of time, people look at a car as something that gets them from point A to point B, and that's it, no more, no less. So if a person is spending that type of money on a vehicle, that's a lot of their money, because when you finance a car, most people, they finance, for 6-7 years. So that's 6-7 years of you paying interest on a depreciating asset, which is why, a lot of times people talk about how you should, buy a used car. You shouldn't, you shouldn't buy a brand new car. Buy a car that's maybe a year or two old and has low mileage, etc., etc. And so debt is having charge cards, right? With high interest rates. A lot of charge cards, interest rates can range anywhere from 15 to 20 something %, which is a lot of money that you are going to be paying to essentially borrow, which means if you have a really high charge card limit, you're going to be paying a lot of money just to be able to charge that amount. And so that's something that I think in a lot of ways we talk about. Yes, inflation is high, but I also want to see those same people that are struggling or say that they're struggling, how many of them got into debt, early on? Like, how many of those people got themselves into a lot of debt maybe in their 20s, whether it's charge card debt or buying cars that they really couldn't afford, but maybe they had decent credit at the time, so the dealer, went on ahead and gave it to them. I want to see that statistic, because as Americans and people in general, we always want bigger and we always want better. And I feel like that's something that a lot of time people really, they forget about. That, if you have to remember, if you have, a charge card, a car note, rent or mortgage, you have all these different bills that are essentially eating at your monthly income, you're not going to really be able to afford or have money left over to save or have money left over to invest or whatever the case is. And so I think that that's something that people have to really look at, is how debt honestly really kills your overall wealth. And it's something that I think that is not talked about, and it is. I think a lot of time people, as they make more money, they tend to want more things. It's just kind of like human nature. Like, maybe you was making 50,000 and now you're making 70, 80. So you're like, ooh, I want to, I have more money for this. I have more money for that. I want to spend money on this. I want to spend money on that, and I think it just, I think that it tends to just, I guess you could say, like, trickle down. I think it tends to just trickle down. And, you know, I think that's the big thing here, is that a lot of people get themselves into debt, and then they complain about why inflation is high. It's like, well, no, sweetheart, you charged up thousands of dollars in your 20s and you're still trying to pay that back at an interest rate of 20%. You know, like, that's on you. I also think people tend to want to have everything, if that makes sense, meaning that they don't want to sacrifice. You know, it's like a lot of times people want to only maybe have one source of income, whether that's you just have a job and then that's it. You don't have anything else, if that, you know. And so a lot of time people are not willing to work another part-time job. They're not willing to work more hours at their job that they have now, you know, for time and a half. They're not willing to do anything extra to try to live the lifestyle that they want. I have a lot of people that are like that. I know a lot of people, you know, they everything has to be nice. They gotta have a nice car, they gotta have a nice place that they're living in. They like to take the best and biggest vacations, and they don't want to sacrifice anything. Well, you know, it's like this. If you want to take that nice vacation, there's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself, but maybe you don't get to go out with your friends every weekend at the bar and get smashed. You know, maybe you might have to say, hey, if you guys want to hang out, maybe we need to have a movie night, like at my place or at one of you guys' places where it's a little cheaper, you know, and that way you can save extra money. Or maybe you don't get to eat out. Maybe instead of going to McDonald's all the time to eat out or whatever you eat, maybe it's like, hey, I'm gonna start cooking more at home and save money. You get what I'm saying? A lot of folks don't want to make those sacrifices. At least that's kind of the vibe that I've gotten from a lot of Americans and just people in general. People want everything, and I think a lot of it has to do with just the concept of the fast lifestyle that we have right now. I think a lot of people right now, because they see things on Instagram, they see things on TikTok, and they see all these people making this quote unquote fast money, and they don't realize that a lot of it is like a facade. You also don't see like people like that on YouTube that are making money. You don't see how a lot of them, you know, maybe they were on YouTube for 5 or 6 years before they really started seeing money. You know, people don't think about that everything takes time. And so I just think that we're in this era now where everybody wants everything fast. People don't really necessarily want to work for stuff, and we just want to complain about everything because we have easy access to the internet. We have easy access, you know, to things like TikTok, you know, Twitter, Facebook, you know, where you can just blast out Reddit, blast out your opinions, and I guess you could say get people to kind of follow along, if that makes sense. So I just think that nowadays, like I said, we're in an era where people just want to complain. I'm not saying that inflation is not high. I'm not saying that stuff is not high, but I also feel like people back in the day said the same thing too. You know, they complained about that too, that stuff was high. You know, it gets to a point where you have to try and want better. And if you're just going to sit around and complain about it, then no, nothing is essentially going to change for you. But let me know you guys' thoughts about this down below in the comment section. Do you guys think that debt is a big wealth killer, you know, or do you think that you can have debt but at a manageable level? I personally believe that people will have debt to some degree. I don't think you can go through life and have maybe no debt. There will be some levels of debt that you'll have, but you know, if you can minimalize, as I would always say, be a minimalist and live underneath your means. So let me know you guys' thoughts about this down below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.